The Ranger Paladin build is one that is very fun to play, and recently I made an endgame focused build that handles areas all over the game without issues. However, for those on a budget, it is still playable with minimal gear, and this has to be one of my most budgeted builds yet.
In today's video, I'm going to go over the build for
the budget Fire Ranger Paladin. With the gear so dirt cheap, if you can play this build, there's almost nothing that you can't play and enjoy.
I'm going to go over the attributes, the skill tree, the gear for my character and my mercenary, and afterwards I'm going to show you guys some gameplay so you could see this build in action. But do keep in mind that when it comes to this build, there are different ways you can be able to gear the character depending on your needs, whether you're trying to go for maximum DPS, you're trying to do a magifying character, or a hybrid of the two. Just keep in mind when it comes to looking at the gear choices that I'm going to be choosing, that you can choose alternative gear depending on the demand that you have for your build. Before we actually get into the build, the comment shout out for this video is going to be
Edgy Video General from the endgame version of this Fire Ranger Paladin, who said that they liked the build and really enjoyed the fire effects. I couldn't agree more. It's one of my favorite effects in the game, and it made this build that much more fun to play. I'm glad that you enjoyed the video.
Now let's go ahead and get into the video.
For the attributes, he has enough strength to be able to equip the gear, enough points into dexterity to have close to 5,000 attack rating once buffed up, and the remaining points go into vitality. For the skill trees, starting with the combat skills, this is completely optional, but I have put 1 point into charge as it's faster than vigor when getting around. However, this is optional, and there are some points left over at the end that you can choose to put where you see fit. So I have charge in case I really need to get somewhere in the fastest way possible with the setup. Moving on to the offensive aura skill tree, I have maxed out Holy Fire as this adds to the fire damage that I'll be doing, as well as it does pulse damage across the entire screen. I also maxed Blessed Aim as this build suffers from low attack rating, and even just adding the passive amount does a lot for this build. Lastly, for the defensive aura skill tree, I maxed out Resist Fire and Salvation as they are synergies for Holy Fire. Then I maxed Vigor as this is how I'll be getting through towns much faster, and it doesn't cost any mana to use. As I mentioned a moment ago, there are some extra points left over, so as an additional means of safety, I put the remaining points into Redemption to help keep our health up whenever it's needed, or if the mercenary ends up dying. Now for the gear, when it comes to the concept of a budget build, keep in mind that the items being shown are based on if they are, or sometimes aren't, optimal for the build, despite the item's rarity. There's a reason that so many set and unique items, and even some being treasure class 87 items, never see the light of day aside from grailing, while some magic and rare items are more optimal and ideal for a build, and sometimes even become mandatory. And on items with a variety of stats that can roll, remember that this is all based on RNG or random number generation, or even better, just dumb luck for certain items to drop, as well as how they can roll. The headwear is a plus to Paladin skill circlet, the amulet is Cat's Eye for the faster run walk, increased attack speed, and dexterity, the armor is Hustle for the faster run walk, increased attack speed, evade, and a small all resistance boost. However, as an alternative, you can use Treachery for the Fade proc to boost your resistances, as well as add physical damage reduction. It also has increased attack speed and cold resistance. But this is what I'm going to be using to pre-buff with, as I like the additional faster run walk on Hustle. However, either choice is perfectly fine, as they both have increased attack speed, which is going to be crucial for this build. The bow is a Ravenclaw socketed with a Shell rune, and it has increased attack speed, fires explosive arrows, enhanced damage, bonus to attack rating, and a little added strength and dexterity. The boots are rare faster run walk with lightning resistance boots. The first ring is Ravenfrost for the attack rating, dexterity, and cannot be frozen. The belt is Razortail for piercing and dexterity. The second ring is rare dual leech with dual res ring. It is completely up to RNG to find rings like this. However, if you're trying to gamble for it, check out my beginner guide on gambling for rings. The gloves are laying of hands for the increased attack speed and fire resistance. On Switch, I have Demon Limb for the enchant charges, and Spirit to boost resistances. This would be the ideal hand to have when using charge, as you'll be more safe with better resistances, but either one of them you can use with vigor to get around faster. In the inventory is the cube, both tomes, 2 offensive aura skillers, the Flame Rift Sunder charm to ensure that nothing we fight is going to be fire immune, and 2 fire res small charms. The only other item in my inventory is Treachery for pre-buffing. I wanted to really make this as budgeted as possible to show that something as bare bones as this setup can still be fun to play and have a good understanding to how the build plays out for those curious to try it out who wouldn't have endgame gear. For the additional stats, he has 6% life leech, 5% mana leech, 100% increased attack speed, 128% faster run walk, and 33% chance of piercing. For the mercenary, he is the Act 2 prayer mercenary using a cure helm, treachery for the body armor, and the weapon is insight for the meditation aura, as meditation, cure, and prayer all synergize one another, and meditation and cure are technically counted as prayer as well. This will help both your character and the mercenary heal constantly, helping both of you increase your survivability. Now that we've discussed the attributes, the skill trees, the gear for my character and my mercenary, let's go ahead and check out this build in action to see how well it actually plays out. If you saw when going over the attributes, My resistances were absolute booty cheeks. However, there's a very easy way to fix it, and because of the Mercenary, it's completely safe. First, I gotta get the Mercenary's aura to become active, so let's take him outside, find some friends, and let him play for a bit. Perfect. Now at the River of Flame, my fire risk sucks on the main hand, so I gotta switch to my offhand where it's much higher. Into the fire pit real quick. Keep a look at his health. Using this to proc Fade from Treachery will help fix the issues with low resistances, as well as add some physical damage reduction. Once procced, I'm going to switch back to using Hustle. However, like I mentioned earlier, sticking with Treachery would be perfectly fine. I just prefer the additional faster run walk with Hustle to not have to charge around as much. Eldridge is a staple super unique, as he not only has a good drop table, but being conveniently next to a waypoint is perfect for getting a lot of runs done quickly. Shank and his minions are also quite easy with this build. When it comes to cows, he can handle the smaller herds without much issue. Granted, it's not going to be fast, but having the Mercenary at the lead to help group the cows up, all the while making sure to keep them alive in between firing arrows, this setup handles them well. Just try to avoid being swarmed, and if all else fails, run back, drag the Mercenary back with you, and try to get them in somewhat of a line to fire and pick them off easier. This is all going to be based on how your map rolls when it comes to monsters. However, generally speaking, he can go through the River of Flame, but it would be slow paced. It is very important to keep a Mercenary alive, as he is essential to helping make this build setup viable. With the gameplay, for anyone who'd be curious as to which player settings I'm using for my build guides, the past, presently on screen, and in the future, down in the bottom left corner is what the example gameplay being shown is currently at. The pits was really fun with this build, and using Holy Fire, enemies from a distance were easier to spot to allow me to try to get a better shot with grouping them up as much as I could. One of the best things about this build, you're not going to burn any mana when dealing damage. Even if you had no mana, the explosive arrows is on the bow, so you don't have to worry about not being able to attack effectively. Stony Tombs was really good as well. Almost everything was taken out with 1 or 2 hits, and with opening up any of the doors and having them group up at the entrance to the room, it made clearing each level really easy. This build isn't incredibly fast by any stretch of the imagination. However, for those wanting something simple and fun to try out as an off-meta introduction to the concept of the Ranger character, this build is quite cheap, whether you're farming for the items yourself or trading for the gear needed, and you will have a lot of fun trying this out. And on top of that, with such an open inventory, it only could and would get better either in damage, survivability, and or even magic finding as well when it comes to upgrading any of the items with this build. I actually enjoyed trying this build out. The build did feel budgeted, but it still was effective enough to not feel as though it was too slow to have fun with. However, I do understand that this wouldn't be an ideal pace for most players to want to try a build like this with. And in that case, check out my endgame focused Fire Ranger Paladin that has equal parts speed, survivability, and damage. Video link down in the description below. And that's going to wrap it up for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and were able to see if this build would be something that you would be interested in going into the future, and if anything, at least just enjoyed the video.
If you like this kind of content and want to see more, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell notification to be notified whenever a new video comes out.
Come on. Come on. Come on, then. There you are. There you are.
And if you like this video, please let me know by leaving a like. It really is appreciated to be able to help my channel to grow. And if you want to see more of my Diablo 2 Resurrected content, make sure to click the card in the corner up above to check out my Diablo 2 Resurrected playlist with a lot of videos already in it, with a lot more coming in the very near future. Other than that, I hope you guys are staying safe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.